I see a standard shift car, I smile and think of my mom and her shifting gears. To give you a good picture of my mom and her driving, her nickname was Pick a Gear Mama. She could never quite figure out which gear to use, and we would often hear that grinding sound that would make your hair stand on end. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you show her how? Believe me, we tried. What this resulted in is one of us would drive when we needed to go any place with my mom. So when my mom offered to teach my sister-in-law how to drive, we were speechless. The thing was, we didn't know that had occurred until after the fact. I had just arrived home from visiting a friend. My sister-in-law was in the family room telling my brother her story. Mom was nowhere to be found. My new sister-in-law was not aware of my mother's inability when it came to shifting gears, so she unwittingly accepted my mother's offer to teach her how to drive. When my mother told her that she would love to do this, my sister-in-law was initially reluctant, but agreed. After all, what was the harm? They both climbed into our new Volkswagen Beetle and drove to the church parking lot a short distance from our home. On the way, my sister-in-law noticed the grinding sound and how my mother was shifting gears. Mom said something to the effect that it always sounded that way and not to worry. With much jerking and grinding, they made their way to the church parking lot. Then Mom began her lesson. She put my sister-in-law in the driver's seat and showed her where the clutch and brake pedals were and explained to her what they were. She had my sister-in-law start the engine, telling her to slowly let out the clutch and move the gear shift up. As luck would have it, my sister-in-law had shifted to first gear. So far, things were going very well. They slowly moved forward. Mom was very pleased with herself. Then my sister-in-law shifted to second gear, and that's when the trouble began. Mom was absolutely certain it should go further. Mom moved the gear shift for my sister-in-law, and the car shook, made really loud noises, jerked, and ground to a halt. With much jerking, grinding, and sputtering, the car inched forward towards an embankment. My mother, in her frustration, tried to put the car in reverse, but it kept moving forward. Mind you, my mother was shifting the gear while my sister-in-law was in the driver's seat trying to figure out what to do with the clutch. The minister of the church happened to be watching and wondered, what the heck are those two doing? The car was doing all manner of jerking, grinding, smoking, protesting loudly as if it were alive. Meanwhile, the car was continuing to inch ever closer to the embankment. Our minister watched in fascination and wondered if he should offer some form of assistance. Meanwhile, in the car, my mom was trying to direct my sister-in-law as to what to do next while my mother was shifting the gear just like it was an Xbox joystick. My sister-in-law was getting quite nervous because the embankment was drawing ever closer with every jerk. Mom was determined, grew ever more agitated, and with every grind only to have the car jerk and stop even closer to the edge of the embankment. The minister decided it was time to help. He walked over to the shuddering car. He knocked on the window and asked if he could be of assistance. My mother gave him a very puzzled look and says, "We're doing just fine." My sister-in-law looked over at the minister with this pleading look as if to say, "Get me out of here now." Being the wise man that he was and knowing my mom, he asked my mom if they would like to take a break and have a cold drink. Mom thought for a bit and then agreed. My sister-in-law let out a big sigh, just like a balloon sputtering out air. My mother looked at my sister-in-law and asked if she were feeling okay. The minister just chuckled. In the end, the minister drove Mom and my sister-in-law home and walked back to the church. That's when I happened in and heard my sister-in-law tell her story about Mom's driving lesson. After that, Mom never did offer to help anyone to learn to drive in any form. Dad decided it was time for a new car and bought an automatic. My sister-in-law did learn how to drive, but she learned it on an automatic. Please don't get me wrong. My mom was super smart, had a PhD, and was the head of a college library. She just wasn't mechanically oriented. What did I learn from all of this? Go with your strengths. Learn your limitations. Find the best person and tools you can to help you overcome those.